Hi, my name is Kim Izzarelli, and welcome to Insights with Kim Izzarelli. This economy has been tough on middle-aged job seekers. Today I have Wendy Kaufman joining us. Wendy is principal of Balancing Life's Issues. Is that the correct name of your
Absolutely.
firm? Okay. For 20 years, she's been the go-to resource for companies committed to supporting employees' work-life balance, very important. After many successful years as a training consultant, Wendy began to provide a variety of counseling and advocacy and coaching services to her clients. She launched the company in 2001 and expanded the scope to a network of workforce support. This has included companies like IBM, Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, JPMorgan Chase, and Bank of America. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Great. Wendy, what's some of the things that you're coming across with your clients?
You know, you mentioned the economy. That's just one of the many facets that everybody needs to handle today. You know, finances is clearly a major issue. Living not within our means, because that's not going to work anymore, but really living below our means so we have that extra money. So we've created this 5 buckets program, and we know what a well-balanced person looks like. We know what a well-balanced person is. You gotta love research science. I mean, I did my dissertation back at Penn 30 years ago on this topic, and not that they laugh, but certainly it wasn't up there in the top, 5 things that business people. You know, today it's a $15 billion industry in America alone. Yeah. And if you have a millennial, that 18 to 25, 26-year-old, it's all they care about. They want to make sure that they have a balanced life. So what we do is create educational, meaningful experiences for seminars that help people really understand how to balance their life.
So what were they laughing at back at Penn? That you couldn't be happy in the job, you weren't supposed to be happy?
Yeah, I think there's really an attitude of suck it up and go to work, and then suck it up and go home, and never the two shall mesh. And why can't that happen? And honestly, we still have controversy today. I mean, Sheryl Sandberg's all over the news for women, particularly about lean into careers. And I'm a huge supporter. I run a very large company. The daunting statistics are way set against me. Less than 1% ever make the $1 million mark for women business owned. So I really understand the challenges of running a company while raising a family. But I would argue that it's because we're not teaching the skill sets. I was lucky enough to learn the skill sets that helped me become successful.
And what would some of those skills be?
So if we look at our 5 buckets, which is our trademark seminar, and everything comes from that, there are 5 buckets you need. And you need to do them all at the same time, which is very difficult for people to understand. I have clients all the time who say, well, when I get $1 million, then I'll worry about everything else. Or when I get skinny, then I'll worry about everything else. You know, it doesn't work that way, right? So we need to have our finances in order. We need to make sure we have money in the bank. Okay. We need to really take care of our family and friends. We need to have our support people, of people we like, of people that we can trust. We need to take care of our health. For sure, you know what's going on with Mayor Bloomberg's bans every other day, or whatever the story is, right? And then we really need to make sure that we're, in some form or fashion, giving back, that we are a meaningful part of the community. And the last but not least, which is I think the one that we struggle with the most, is what do we do for us? So where do we fall into this? What are we doing every day that makes us feel good? So really what we look at is my to-do list has 5 columns every day, so that I don't lose one part of it.
Wow, so that's a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot of balls in the air, a lot to manage.
Yep.
I mean, when you take time out to raise your family, you come out of the workforce. I did that. I was out for 11 years. It's really, really hard to come back. It is. It changes rapidly. Just to be out, I would say, for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, is like being out, 5 or more years now. It changes that quickly. You
know, one thing that all of our seminars, and we have probably 400 seminars and 800 trainers who deliver them all over the country, really make it clear is that it is hard. And so whether it be we start teaching our kids that at a younger age, which is a parenting issue, or whether we take a step back and really understand that what you're facing with so many other people is, what do I need to do to be successful? So really what we're talking about, Kim, here is the mind switch. So we know how difficult it is, right? Now the situation turns and says, okay, so tell me what you're going to do to handle every difficulty. What do you need to learn? How are you going to make yourself the most desirable candidate? And it sounds simple, or people say to me, simple, stupid, but I interview all the time. And I interviewed someone yesterday who came in with, I'm late because I had a kid appointment and it ran late and I couldn't handle it. that's pit and parcel for everybody's day. So the bar is raised higher to say, so we understand how difficult it is. Tell me now how you're going to match it and exceed it. The standards are really tough.
And what are some of the things that people can do, without real hard work experience, but just, volunteering or to get that current, application, that current use of technology? What are some of the things that people can do to get out there?
The first one is to be nice.
Okay.
So, and I don't mean to be nice when things are going well. I really mean to be nice, consistently nice across the board. And when you can't be nice, you need to stay home. You need to make sure you're not affecting as many people as possible. So for me, one of the things I do is when I walk out the door, I don't walk into my office until I can really come up with a list of how happy I am to be there.
Right.
Because my staff needs that.
Right.
And there are days where I'll drive around 20 extra times because I know what I'm going to hit. And the same thing is true on the reverse. I don't walk into my door. I'm remarried, sort of a typical American family. I raised my kids alone, then remarried. So I have a 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23-year-old. Wow. It gets crazy. And the holidays come. We're in an interfaith relationship, so it's even more bedlam, right? I don't walk in that door until I can give myself the message of how lucky I am. So the first thing is we really are looking for people to be nice and positive.
Okay.
And the second thing also, then the next part of what we're looking for is to people really to say, I can do this task. I can get this done. I have the confidence and the ability to learn what I need to learn.
So how would someone prove that to an employer if they haven't worked recently, say within the last year?
So there's a great story, and I love it because many years ago I was doing a speech and Montel Williams was speaking. And he was, a very good speaker, but there was a woman sitting in the front who actually worked for Montel Williams. When she started working there, she said she did not have her high school degree. And he would come in and say, can you get this done? And she'd say yes, and then he would leave, and she'd panic. And she said, oh my God, I got to phone a friend. I got to look it up on the internet. I'm going to figure it out. So to a certain extent, you want to tell your employer, I can do this.
Okay.
Bring it on. That's going to differentiate you, I'm guessing, by about 50%.
Okay.
Tell me how you're going to do the job. And the second thing is that we've really lost this whole idea of, I need to be grateful for my job. So I'm going to take a step back and say, not only am I going to do it, I'm going to thank my employer more regularly. I am going to be more conscious of, the environment that I'm working in. If you do those two things, you're separating yourself out into less than 10% of today's workforce. How sad is that?
That's great. I mean, if you
can do it,
communicate back for the opportunity, to be thankful for the opportunity.
Challenge is, though, you've been up all night with a sick kid.
Right.
You didn't pay your credit card bill. You've got student loans. And your car just broke down. And now I'm telling you, you got to go to work in that good, positive mood.
Well, I think the person that's looking should take your advice and put that baggage behind them and keep going forward.
How many people do you think do it?
Well, it's a tough thing, but
yeah.
It's a skill. We have to work on it. What are some of the opportunities or things people can pick up through volunteering or just taking on different leadership roles in their community? Are employers looking for those
Yes.
things?
And I think there's a two-hand, right? So employers are really looking for philanthropic, good people because they are lasting employees. And you have to remember, employers want to keep employees.
Right.
It's way too stressful to have turnover. So we want to keep,
to
it's
retrain
very
people.
Expensive. And it's very disruptive to the staff.
Right.
So, I mean, I have 8 employees and I don't want any turnover. And that's, and even of the 400 trainers that really work for me on a regular basis, we want to do whatever it can take to keep the good ones, right? So I think, when you're asking me about being a good person, being able to see bigger than yourself,
right.
What kind of opportunities does that bring for you? What it brings for you is a whole new way to see your life and a whole new way to understand what you are grateful for, what you are blessed for. And I think ultimately, all goes down this pursuit of happiness, right? How are we becoming a happier person? A happier person is a healthier person. So the employer is really all about happy, healthy employees because it's going to save them money.
Okay. So the employer is going to be looking for someone that's a team player, is looking out for other people, maybe mentoring, bringing some other folks along, and not necessarily just a rock star, but is really
Well, I would
bringing
say
it
those
to
things are rock star.
Okay.
Because again, those are not, they may be, if you're listening, you may be thinking, oh, everyone's like that. And, you know, as someone who's been doing this for 30 years and travels the country, most people don't fall into that. Most people have a list of complaints about how hard their job is, they're doing, you know, much more with less, they're unhappy about their pay, they're unhappy about their desk, they're unhappy about their cubicle. I mean, that's more of the common scenarios that we get.
Okay, okay. Who do you see getting placed now? Who are the people that are finding jobs, and where are those jobs? What industries or work groups?
So I love the story of the woman who started Spanx. She started Spanx right after September 11th. The economy had gone down, and she has a great line. She says, nobody told her not to start a business.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think there's some economies that are better. Healthcare, clearly, if I look at our top sellers, anything in the preventative healthcare is going to be selling right now.
Good.
People are interested in how to take care of themselves. Right. So that's certainly a good field to look at, and certainly for people that are looking for career transitions. The challenge is we are not looking for people that are not practicing what they preach. And I have to tell you, all the time we get resumes and meetings, and somebody will tell me, well, I've had 3 heart attacks, and I've had 2 this, and I've had 2 that, but you know what, I still salt my food like crazy. But I want to talk about preventive health.
Right.
So we're really looking for one person to actually practice what they preach. And I think that's a very big difference.
Yeah.
Employers get much more personal today than they ever did before. That's through social media. So I may not ask you those questions,
right,
but I Googled you and I saw everything in their mother that was on going on. Right.
And there's a lot out there.
Yep. Yeah, I'm always surprised what my
okay.
trainers put out there.
So good. It's the beginning of a relationship. They want to know all about you, what you do in your spare time.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
Are you an authentic person? Are you authentically really going to bring value to our company?
Good, good. And tell me more about sort of the geriatric shift, you know, the healthcare industry. What other industries are going to benefit by sort of an aging population in the United States?
I think anything to do with whatever we consider elder care, but I think it's not what people are thinking about elder care, because, you know, if you read the Wall Street Journal last week, it talked about these very high-end luxury places that are opening up for over 65 that want to play golf and want to play tennis and want to work.
Right.
So it's going to look and feel very differently. My dad was 81. Unfortunately, my best friend passed away last year, worked until the day he got sick. That's a very traditional person now. And employers are rethinking about this retirement age. So we're looking at value that you bring to the company. So I think reshifting our mind is something that a lot of employers are looking at. There's something to be said for an older American that can offer a lot.
Okay.
The other thing I think that's important with that is to really make sure that the place and the environment is really conducive. So you mentioned mentors. You know, we have an engineering company that makes sure that everybody's a mentor and a mentee, so that those that are over 65 are matched with those that are under 30. So they get to explain, why did this happen? Why are we doing this?
Right.
That's a
very important to learn from the mistakes. One thing you've seen disappear is the exit interview, which is probably the most valuable information that a company can get.
We're seeing it come back more and more. I mean, you have to do it within the laws of the land, but we're seeing it more and more, and I would say more and more companies are worried about reputations than ever before. They're worrying about that tweet that's going to go out 1 second after that door, you know, closes.
Right. Good. You just wrote a book.
Yeah.
It's like very exciting.
Writing.
Can you be writing? Oh, okay.
Writing.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you're going with it?
Yeah. It really is about this idea that life is hard. And so, you know, I think that's, if I go back to the Sheryl Sandberg's big controversy about lean on in and women leaning into careers, I absolutely believe that we all need to empower ourselves to do better. But I also think we need to acknowledge that life can really be challenging. You know, I know for me it was my ex-husband leaving one day, or my dad getting sick, or, you know, dealing with 3 college tuition bills at once. That's just me. And so I think that what we haven't done a really good job is, Kim, what you were talking about is, you know, good people try really hard, and sometimes there's a disconnect. It's not working. So the book is comprised of life stories about people's real struggles to do with all the buckets. So health, family, money, and everything we've talked about. And how did they really make the best of really bad situations?
So really just sort of a collection of coping mechanisms, of ways that people could overcome issues to move on with their lives. Really good. When do you expect it to come out?
That's a good question. We're hoping this year, by the end of the year. That's the goal.
The publishing industry right in the time for the holidays.
Yeah, that would be good. You never know.
Just another thing to deal with. So good. You write some columns. I see several actually here. What are the kind of things you like to write about? What do you feel is helpful?
So I write for the New York Report, which is a small business magazine out of Manhattan. We have a very large readership. This month, actually, I was featured. I wrote an open book, a column about being an open book company. So my company runs slightly differently in that all the employees have access to our finances. So they understand where the money comes from, where the money goes, how it's being spent, and they're part and parcel to that discussion.
And you're a privately held company.
We are a privately held company.
All right, so that is really a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a big deal in terms of CEO compensation or account manager. I'm not saying that we share, obviously, particular salaries because that would be illegal, but what we do share is basic choices. We spend a lot of time talking about our future, where we're going. We just signed a very large company, so we'll be doubling in size by next year. So that's not just due to me, that's due to an unbelievable staff that helped get it there. They'll go through the American Express business book and the account, and they'll say, you know what, we spent $60 a month on water, and we don't need that much water. We're gonna save, we're gonna save the company 30. So that was that article. I basically write about which bucket seems to be the bucket of the day. Yeah. And so right now we're writing a lot about finances because people are really overspending. And so we're still living in a world of money makes us happy. And you know, we all know it's not true, but then we go out to dinner, which we really can't afford.
Okay, good. Well, I'm very excited that you're so keen on training, and I started working in the 80s, and companies spent a lot of money on training back then. They really believed in it, they understood it, and then it was one of the first things to go in the 90s, and you really saw the effects right away. I mean, you constantly have to be retraining and training your workforce to keep good employees and perhaps have opportunities for some to move on, or move up.
Oh, absolutely. So, and we do a ton of work. I teach a class about LinkedIn, and we teach that for big employers who really want to say to their employees, I don't know that you'll need this, but we want to make sure you're ready if you need it. I don't think anybody could ever say your job is secure anymore. Anyone who's looking for job security, that's the same thing of saying I want to eat all the food in the world and not gain weight. That's just never going to happen.
It's an illusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done reorgs for fathers who've had to fire their sons because there's just no money.
Wow.
So, there is no job security, so we have an obligation to teach employees how to take care of themselves, how to make sure they're networked. I went to a party about 6 months ago. I went to a Penn alumni party, and I was the only one there that had a business card.
Interesting.
Because they all used their cell phones.
Okay.
They either tapped it, or they scanned it, or they emailed it.
Right.
And then one of the women said to me, "Really? Business card? How outdated are you?" I was like, "Yeah, and I do this for a living," and I didn't know that.
So you learned a new skill that day.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about, if you could, the kids coming out of college, trying to get that first job lined up. It's really, really tough this year. Yep. Any success stories you can share?
Oh, we have a ton of success stories. So I'm a huge believer that there are many more success stories, but I do think that as parents, we need to take a step back. So, everyone knows about helicopter parenting. This is the worst problem we've ever had in this country. I mean, literally, Kim, we're actually feeding our kids so much junk food that this is the first generation in American history that if we don't change, they'll live shorter. The same thing is more parents are applying to kids' college than ever before. I was at a client that I can't name, but the HR director is showing me the application from the mother. This is insane. Insane. Yeah. So we need to take a step back and say, are they going to pound the door? Are they going to go door to door? I did a coaching session on Friday with a young boy. He's about 4 credits short of college, and he just doesn't want to go back. And so I reamed him with the toughest love coaching session till the tears were streaming down. And I was very surprised when he said to me, you're the first one that told me the truth.
Okay.
He's talked to his mother, his father, his grandparents, his teachers. No one sat down and said to him, you are 4 credits short.
Do you think it's good for parents to give children opportunities to fail?
Oh, absolutely. And they need to be failing from 6 months old. I mean, they need to really experience what it feels like. That doesn't mean I don't think you unconditionally love them. I mean, my kids have had many failures, and it breaks your heart as a parent. You hug them, you love them, you talk to them, and then you say, tell me what you're going to do now. No different than what you were saying with the midlife person trying to find a job. This is really hard. This seems unsurmountable. You feel like you're climbing Mount Everest. Tell me what you're going to do one step at a time.
That's it.
It's
breaking
all
it
it
down
is.
into small
Yep.
steps.
Tell me what
plan.
you're doing today.
Okay.
Now, I might be a little tougher than the next coach and say, okay, you applied to 5 jobs a day. I don't think that's very good. I think people need to be applying to probably up 50 a day. And they certainly need to be on LinkedIn and have at least 1,500 contacts.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
So there's some high standards that we do have.
That is. It's good. But I like how you raised the bar there. For someone who's watching this and maybe says, I like this, I like what you said, I either want to make a career change or I'm looking for a job, and they're considering engaging with a life coach for the first time. Might be a little out there for them. For some people, it's like therapy to really talk about what they wanted to do when they grew up or they want to do. What is sort of a session like with a life coach, and is it a week? Is it a month? Is it
so
a 6
let me
month
just
thing?
explain.
What does it work like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in coaching, although I have a counseling degree that I don't use anymore, we don't go backwards. So anybody who is any kind of an executive coach isn't going to care about your divorce. They're not going to care about your family's hardships. They're really going to say, tell me where you want to go to today.
Okay.
So they're going to move you forward. So that's a very big difference. The second thing is they're going to give you homework. So it's what are you going to do this week? So there are plenty of clients I've coached literally 3 times. They've done all their homework and they're good to go. I don't believe in long-term coaching. That's just not my philosophy. I believe if you're ready and willing to be coached, it's a short-term, 3, 4, 5 sessions tops. And usually the 5 sessions are people that are dealing with things like illnesses, which really are at some points totally out of their control. Going through chemo, having a spouse go through chemo, things like that.
Right.
Other than that, it's pretty short term.
So it really takes some stress off of the relationship because someone might be going on a lot of interviews or not getting the success, or the results that they want. Maybe the feedback that they're expecting from a friend or from a spouse that the spouse or the friend can't give, or doesn't want to give, or doesn't have the heart to give. The coach can sort of bring that person along to where they need to be.
I would say not sort of. A good coach should be absolutely giving you all the information.
Okay.
So they're telling you if your outfit is wrong. They're telling you, I've coached women on long red fingernails and going into a certain bank and said, let's talk about this. Ultimately the decisions are always going to be the other person's, but a good coach should be absolutely saying, look, you need to know this. You need to understand this. And I do think that we have become a society that are very fearful for a wide variety of reasons to sit down and say, I got to tell you something. I got to let you know. Ultimately, the choice is always going to be you. I tell my trainers all the time, I'm going to come watch you. I'm going to give you my opinion. Then you get to dissect it and say, well, maybe Wendy does have a point, or maybe she doesn't. Okay. But I'm certainly going to have that dialogue.
Well, let's talk about those first few seconds, that impression that an employer makes.
7 seconds.
7 seconds. Isn't
That's
that amazing?
all you get.
Your whole life is
7
determined
seconds.
in those 7 seconds. But sometimes you don't even get that far. Sometimes it's a phone interview.
7 seconds.
It's the first 7 seconds of the phone interview, too. Wow. So what are some of the things people do on phone interviews that blow the phone interview?
What's interesting is it really does tie together. So, I recently went back to school. Goldman Sachs has a program where they sponsor small businesses. So I graduated from a program called 10,000 Small Businesses. And Goldman Sachs and Warren Buffett have worked on it. And for 6 months, you practice your elevator pitch. That's all you do. And at the end, it's a little like Shark Tank.
Right.
At the end, you have to do your pitch to the managing directors of Goldman Sachs. And just like everyone else, I got nervous, I polished it. And I'm comfortable speaking, it's what I do for a living. But, the feedback they gave me was I wasn't me enough. I lost that little bit of, wow, I'm so excited to be here. This is my dream. This is my hopes. So I would really coach people to say, be really who you are. Find that place to go through the nervousness. Some don'ts are, don't share your nervousness. Okay. Never tell an employer how nervous you are. I do not want to hear that. Don't share how insecure you are about being up to date where you are. Right. What I want to hear is confidence and competence. And actually, I'll do a little pitch to Oprah Magazine has a great month this month on confidence. Or there's a website called Taming Your Gremlins, which really say, how do I silence that? So I really come across as, you know what? You are going to be lucky to have me.
So maybe some of the conditions for that, not having the dog in the background, not having the kids in the background, not having the call waiting beep beeps coming in. What are some of the other ways to make that call?
Those help, but I have to tell you, They always joke because I call myself perfectly imperfect. So all of those things have happened. I was doing a very large session for IBM, and it was supposed to be perfect. And believe it or not, my dog had a run-in with his brother, the big dog, and broke his leg and had to be amputated. So on the day of the call, I had to pick him up from the hospital. He was in a lot of pain. And there was no way I was not going to leave this dog out. He's like the cute little 3-pound dog. So you can hear him whining a little. And I used it in the speech to explain that's really part of life. You want to use me because I know how to handle imperfections. Right. So if the dog barks or the kids make a noise, you want to tell the employer, I can do this. We are absolutely at a place in our country now where we understand people have other lives. We're looking for the skill set to say, can you handle it?
Right. Or how you're reacting to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the Google interview, by the way. That Google interview is all about how do you handle life stresses? Because that's much more important for an employer than anything else. Can you handle the phones ringing, the fax going off, the computer breaking, and the biggest client of your day calling all in 1 second? And I would argue that's a typical morning in my life.
Good. Good. Okay. Well, we only have like a few more minutes left, and we covered a lot of ground today, and I really, really appreciate you coming on.
So fun.
Great.
Thank you.
Good interview. But is there anything you just want folks to know out there that's really important message that sort of
I really think what's important about any life changes is the small little changes can change your life. So, 2 quick stories are, for those of you who hit a snooze button, it's a great example. So many people hit a snooze button in the morning, and then they complain they don't have enough time. That could be 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. That could be an hour a week. There's your exercise time right there. Mm-hmm. Or for those of you who can't meet somebody, and you just really want to meet a significant other, all you might have to do is change the way you commute. You're taking the train, take the bus. You just never know. So we don't look for these huge life changes. We're looking for small changes. If you're networking for a job, I want you to ask people in front of you on the supermarket line, in back of you on the supermarket line. One of my employees, the director of invoicing, she was the cashier at the Food Emporium. And she said, you know what? I really need a job. I just graduated from Fordham. Are you looking? I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. In the degree that she had, because she networked on the food line. So let's not make it harder than it is. It's hard enough. Let's remember that there's so many things we can do.
Okay. Good. Great advice from Wendy Kaufman.
Thank you.
Balancing life's issues. So glad that you could be with us today. And I hope you'll come back again.
Yeah, I'd love to.
After the book comes out.
Thank you.
Promote the book a little bit. We'd like to hear a lot more about it. And thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. What did you do? You didn't make it till the end.